welcome everyone. And looks like we have a full house. Thank you very much for attending. My name is Vasquez Neris, and I am a small business advocate in San Francisco. As an immigrant, I'm all too familiar with the challenges and successes of running a small business. I actually grew up in the back of my father's grocery store in the Mission and the Excelsior. Um, since then, I had a design store for 25 years, a small business on Fillmore Street. And recently I closed it happily to focus on the small business advocacy work that I do here in San Francisco. These days, we create private-public partnerships which help promote small business and the neighborhood merchant corridors of San Francisco. So I like to start by saying small business is big business. We all know that. There are 90,000 businesses in San Francisco. Nearly half of them are considered small business. That means they employ 10 or less employees. They actually employ a third of the population of San Francisco. That's 350,000 people. In fact, if we change our buying by just 1% to local shopping, we will generate $100 million back to the local economy. So we can all do our part to help small business. Today, I'd like to welcome you to the District 2 Merchant Association Community Forum, which has been sponsored by Cruise. In this event, we're presenting the commercial corridors of District 2 in San Francisco. They are Chestnut Street, Union Street, Fillmore Street, Sacramento, and Upper Divisadero. Each merchant association leader will tell their neighborhood story and give you an update on how their businesses and corridors are adapting during this crisis. As we slowly turn the corner during this difficult time, merchants need more exposure to one another, the community, our private and public partners. As we all know, small businesses are more than just places of commerce. They are the living rooms to our neighborhoods. But first, a few housekeeping rules. Today's webinar is being recorded, so if you missed something or want to share it, we'll have it up on the website, or you can wait for the follow-up email from us. We'll also be opening up for Q&A from you, so please type in your question in the Q&A section, and we can share with the panelists after the program is over. Now, I'm happy to start the program. I'm proud to present Kenny Montilla. He's the Public Affairs Manager at Cruise. Historically, we all know that moments of crisis bring great amounts of innovation. And now is the time to engage with our private and public partners to create new collaborations and work on solutions. With that, I'd like Kenny to take it away and share news from Cruise. Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you, Vas. I really appreciate the introduction. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Looking forward to having and being a part of this conversation. I will share my screen in just a moment. Okay. Can everyone see the screen? Fantastic, yes. Awesome. So I want to start by introducing myself. Again, my name is Kenny Montilla. I'm the Public Affairs Manager at Cruise. I have a particular interest in working with the small business community because that's sort of my upbringing. My dad owned a grocery store in the Bronx in New York, where I was born and raised. So I have a vested interest in making sure that small businesses succeed, as well as, using whatever tools at my disposal I have to be able to leverage and help you accomplish that mission. With that said, my focus at Cruise over the last few months has really been engaging with and having these conversations with the merchant community, as well as just residents across the city. One of the great things about Cruise is that I really think that it's important that we have these conversations before we commercialize, which is where we are now, which is why I want to have these conversations. So I want to take today to really share our vision about, what we're working on, what our vision is for the city, but also just to open the dialogue and start to have these conversations with you to understand what your challenges might be and where we can collaborate together to move forward. So with that, I'll jump right into the presentation here. And I'll start by talking a little bit about the timeline. So we talk about and think about AVs as if They are this new technology, and although it is a novel innovation, if you think about it, the idea of autonomous vehicles has really been researched dating back to the 1980s, right? The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, also known as DARPA, started funding autonomous vehicle projects dating back to way back then. In the early 2000s, we started to see self-parking systems within vehicles, and Cruise was founded in 2013, so we're still a relatively new company. And in 2016 was when we began testing in San Francisco. And recently in January of this year was when we announced our Cruise Origin, which is our big project that we're working on to be able to launch a rideshare service here in San Francisco. I would say that the big difference between the conversation about AVs in the past and how it exists today is that today it feels more real because we've seen some of these vehicles on the road. And with that, I think it's important to talk about what our mission is. I think that's critical to helping everyone understand what exactly it is we're working on. And simply put, our mission is to build the world's most advanced autonomous vehicles to safely connect people to the places, things, and experiences they care about. And naturally, the next question is typically, well, why is that your mission? And simply put, the status quo is unacceptable. You think about the over 36,000 road fatalities that happen in the US every year. We don't talk about that enough because it's sort of become normalized, right? And the cool thing about an AV is that it doesn't get distracted, never drives under the influence. When you think about just transportation equity, we know that there's some underserved communities that typically haven't gotten the adequate access to transportation they deserve. And the same applies to so many of our friends in within the different disability communities. When you think about blind folks who typically tend to stay and lean towards areas where they have that ease of accessibility, as opposed to being able to really explore their preferences and have that freedom that they really deserve as far as transportation equity is concerned. And then the climate issue. I think in San Francisco and California as a whole, we've been able to unfortunately witness firsthand the impacts of climate change via the unprecedented amount of wildfires that we recently experienced. 31% of US emissions come from transportation, which make it the largest contributor to carbon pollution. And simply, we don't believe that this has to be the norm. And we're working to make sure that we can move past this current reality. So, Cruise is committed to the fight against climate change. We will always use an all-electric zero-emission fleet. Our vehicles are also powered by 100% renewable energy. And to my knowledge, I think we're the first self-driving company to do so. And we're committed to that. It's something that we're sticking to because, again, it's not about Cruise, it's about the community and what we can do to help put us in a better position for the future going forward. And we're committed to partnering with the people to drive life in San Francisco forward, like I've been saying. Again, that's really the precipice of this entire conversation, right? Why we're having this discourse is because we want to work with you. We believe in launching with cities, not at cities. So in order to do that, we need the feedback from the community to ensure that we're able to actually address the challenges that you're facing. And why San Francisco? Well, for one, it's our hometown. That's where we're based. That's where we were founded. So we're committed to getting it correct here first. And another cool thing about San Francisco is that it provides us with this complex urban environment that gives us the ability to prepare our vehicles for just about anything that a vehicle or a driver may encounter on the road, right? You think about cyclists, sometimes we see double parked cars, construction zones. With our safer streets, some roads are closed. So all these different things that you may not experience everywhere, it gives us the opportunity to do so. And again, we're super committed to getting it right here first because we want to be a real partner to the community. And again, this is our home. And to speak a little more to the being a community partner point, one of the recent impacts of COVID-19 was the rise in food insecurity. It was one of the first indicators of the depth of the crisis. And in March, a few short weeks into shelter in place, we started to hear from neighborhood food banks about how they were struggling with, this increased level of demand. And so we worked with SF Marin Food Bank and the SF New Deal to try to help them scale and be able to serve these different households that they had in need virtually overnight. And we hadn't planned to have a delivery service. This was just one of those situations where there was an important partner in the community that was struggling, and we had this fleet of vehicles that we were like, hey, maybe this is a moment where we can step up and really be intentional and put our words into action by saying, hey, we want to help. To date, I'm happy to say that we've been able to make over 100,000 contactless deliveries across San Francisco. And I think the other important thing to note about this specifically is that over 80% of these deliveries have gone to neighborhoods in San Francisco that are below the household poverty line. So it really is making an impact for people who need it. And now I want to transition a little bit into talking about how the technology works. This is typically a big area of interest for folks. And I'll say this time and time again, at Cruise, priority number one is safety. It has been and will always be. And one of the cool things about what we're doing is, again, we're still pre-commercial. So we're able to really think about accessibility and safety from the onset. And at Cruise, 40% of our AV parts are unique to self-driving, meaning that they're tailor-made to serve that function. So with that, I want to get into just a brief overview of how the sensors work and the different amount of sensors that we actually have on the vehicle. There are over 40 sensors on each Cruise vehicle. The breakdown is there's the 3 different types, which is cameras, LiDARs, and radars. The cameras, and you can see sort of how each of them sees the world through the graphics on the slide here. But the cameras help detect pedestrians, cyclists, traffic lights, things of that nature that you come across while driving, also like construction cones. The LiDAR are more high precision lasers that help detect fixed and moving objects that are closest to the vehicle. And the radar really is what helps you measure the direction of travel and speed of moving objects. So think about a high level view of how fast the vehicles are moving that are nearby. And all of this, when put together, is really what helps the vehicle work. And all of that information is passed on to a computer that's in the vehicle that then is able to guide the vehicle and help direct it to take the appropriate action. And I also want to share a little bit about what we're doing to ensure the safety of our vehicles. Number one, we tested in the real world, like I mentioned. You may see our vehicles on the road. Currently, it's through that partnership with the food banks that I alluded to. But our vehicles are constantly on the road, and we're constantly taking in this information to be able to understand how it's interacting with real life situations. Additionally, and one of the cooler ways that we're able to test is via simulation. The simulation is great because we can do it 24/7. Excuse me. And essentially what we've done is recreated a map of San Francisco, and we can let our vehicles 24/7 run through this program. And we're able to basically create any what if scenario that a vehicle may encounter on the road. Think about a dog running across the street and things of that nature that really help us put it all together. Additionally, we do our closed course track testing. And we're able to put all of this information together to then test the vehicle and also try to figure out, okay, what are the areas of improvement? How do we get there? And to make sure that we're able to do that without compromising another function of the AV technology. I sort of alluded to this already, but I want to share a little bit about how you may encounter Cruise. Currently, the way you'll be seeing our vehicles is, like I mentioned, through that food delivery partnership we've been able to work on with SF New Deal and the SF Marin Food Bank. However, prior to shelter in place, we were doing more autonomous testing on the roads, as well as passenger rides through our CPUC autonomous vehicle pilot program. Again, at this moment, it's only through the food delivery program because of the public health orders. And again, just wanting to make sure that we're doing things the right way and with the community. However, you may have recently heard that we received our driverless testing permit for the city of San Francisco. This is really great news and super exciting for the community. I think naturally the next step in our testing is to be able to see the vehicle on the road without any of our testing operators on board. So there is more information to come on that, but I did want to share that tidbit. And we are going to be conducting our driverless testing in San Francisco. Again, as we get closer to the date when we're actually beginning this driverless testing, we'll be sure to reach out and follow up with more information to everyone. With that, I alluded to the Cruise origin a little earlier. So I wanted to share just a quick video of what exactly it is, what it looks like. And with that, I'll show this quick video clip.
What we're showing you today is what you'd build if there were no cars. Meet the Cruise Origin. It is self-driven. It is all electric. It is shared. It is not a concept. It is a production vehicle.
I've got a ridiculous amount of space here. You can touch your toes, you can stretch.
Awesome and affordable. It's right for you. Electric and shared. And that's what's right for the world.
So I know I threw a lot of information at you in a quick fashion here. I'm happy to continue this conversation with anyone who wants to learn a little more. And like Vas mentioned, we will have a Q&A at the end here, so happy to take any questions there. But really want to make sure we leave enough time for us to hear from you all directly. So with that said, thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity to share this moment with you. And looking forward to finding areas for us to collaborate and work together to help support small businesses in San Francisco. Vas, I think you're muted.
I'm so sorry about that. That will be the statement that we all remember during this COVID period. You need to unmute yourself. But thank you again, Kenny. This is what it's about, communication. Communication leads to collaboration. I just want to thank Cruise for their commitment to small business and their commitment to engaging the small business community of San Francisco, because it's really a holistic community that we're looking at. And communication is of utmost importance. So now we're ready to start the program. Thank you so much for your patience. Before we started, Dominic has created a really beautiful photo montage of our neighborhoods. And it's about a minute long, about a minute and a half long. So Dominic, please take it away. Thank you. That was beautiful. I must say, I took most of those pictures. I went around D2. D2 has some of the most picturesque neighborhoods in the whole city. Each image could be a postcard. So we're really fortunate to be in D2. So let's begin the program. We're going to start with Fillmore Street first. This is an area that's very near and dear to my heart. I moved my business there 25 years ago. And at one point, we had 3 different locations in the Fillmore district. It's an area that's, some people might say it's characterized by big global boutique brands mixed with lots of local businesses too. And that's what, in my mind, that's what gives it one of the special sauces. That's what makes it special. Again, as a reminder, as the presenters are presenting, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A section, and we'll get to them after the program is over. So now I would like to introduce Tricia Benitez, co-owner of Assembly Hall, and she's also a board member on the Fillmore Merchants Association. Take it away, Tricia.
Hi, Voz. Hi, everybody. I'm Tricia, and I, along with my husband, Ron, we own a men's, women's, and kids apparel boutique called Assembly Hall. And we're fortunate to have been a part of the Fillmore Merchants Association for the last 9 years. So a little bit about the history of Fillmore. The Fillmore Merchants Association is the oldest association in San Francisco. It's 110 years old, and it runs approximately 15 blocks from Jackson to McAllister Street. It was started after the 1906 earthquake when immigrants came over to start a business. And at one time, there were 6 synagogues in the area. And, you know, I think a lot of people know that Fillmore's iconic for many things. At one point, it was really popular for being the Harlem of the West Coast. And in today's day, you know, a lot of people come by our store and they still know it as the Fillmore Jazz District. The Fillmore Jazz Fest, which is my favorite street festival in the city, is celebrated every year and attracts thousands of people to the neighborhood. And in the 60s, the Fillmore was also a really big major center for the Summer of Love and hosted iconic artists such as Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, the Grateful Dead at the Fillmore, which is still a really popular concert venue today in the neighborhood. So prior to the pandemic, you know, Fillmore Street was a bustling corridor, over 300 merchants, half of them, such as myself, small businesses, in almost anything you can think of, from apparel to footwear to beauty, popular restaurants, Michelin star restaurants, salons. And the pandemic hit our neighborhood pretty hard. You know, half of the businesses completely closed, 100%. A lot of them had 100% loss in revenue, such as my own store. And a lot of storefronts, I think over 40 were boarded up, mine included. And sadly, some of them decided to close permanently. In today's day, you know, the neighborhood has a little bit of a different landscape due to COVID. And I can recall, you know, being on the block for 9 years. I remember when there were no vacancies on Fillmore Street. It was one of the hottest streets in the nation. Everybody wanted to be on the street. And now there's almost 20 vacant storefronts. So, you know, I think at this time, the neighborhood is strict, you know, it's picking up, and the retail stores that have remained, they're opened up again, but they're adapting to the times. The restaurants, there's a lot of great restaurants, and for the most part, they've all pivoted, and they did curbside, they did takeout, and a lot of them have reopened with these amazing parklets. So if you haven't been, you have to go. You know, your favorite restaurant is back up and running. And the neighborhood, I feel, is revitalizing again with almost 10 parklets and a partial street closure at Washington Street. From my own personal business, you know, we've pivoted. We've beefed up our online and social media presence, which I think is what a lot of retailers on Fillmore Street have done. And we've downsized, though, our physical store presence. So instead of 2 storefronts, we're down to 1. And then also changing our product offering. So as a clothing store, you know, fashion needs have changed. And I think us, along with a lot of the retailers on Fillmore Street, have had to just pivot. You know, at this point, people are looking at fashion differently. They don't need to shop for work attire necessarily, not even having to shop for pants. But if anything, they're buying sweatpants. So although these times are challenging, you know, the neighborhood has been resilient. It's been around for a long time, and I know it's gone through a lot of tough times, and it's bounced back up. So I have faith the neighborhood will pick back up. And, you know, I hope this gives you all a little bit of insight about Fillmore and everybody comes to visit.
Thank you, Tricia. Appreciate it. Thank you. So from here, we're going to take our virtual tour. We're now going to the Marina District. And Alex Mulder, president of the Marina Merchants Association, will tell us a little bit about Chestnut Street and the Marina.
Thanks for having me. I wish I had a story like Trisha where I could say our Merchants Association has been around that long. Unfortunately, it's probably not even 2 years old, and it sort of has been going in and out. And so right before COVID, I took over. Well, I took over a little bit before that, and then we were going to sort of get everything started. And then when COVID hit, pretty much the entire marina sort of went into lockdown mode, including some businesses initially not, but then being boarded up. And so everyone kind of was trying to figure out how to run their own business. And so in terms of the association, now that there's sort of light at the end of the tunnel, I guess you would say, or we're at least seeing some different things improve with capacity and whatnot, we're going to try and start getting it up again. And I really wish I could say I've been here for over 100 years, but it's really, we're sort of probably the newest association. I mean, there's been other ones that have fallen in and out in District 2. That being said, I am a real estate agent in District 2. And, you know, I think this really has to do, a lot of this that's been going on in the pandemic really hit more retail, merchants in general, right? Retail, restaurants. And so what I did is I brought my buddy Tom here, who owns a Silver Cloud, to sort of give his perspective of what it's been like through the process. Tom and I both are native San Franciscans. It turns out, we found out later in life, we both went to the same elementary school over at St. Vincent de Paul, right there on Union Street. Both went to the same high school, just years apart. And our families grew up, probably, our grandfathers actually knew each other from back on 3rd Street, back when it was Butchertown. So a lot of history there. And but what I'm going to do is let sort of Tom take it from here in his experience and what he's seen in the marina and his experience with working through the city and just in general.
Yeah, so when we first had to shut down in March, a lot of businesses, especially on Chestnut Street, boarded up windows. We boarded up part of our windows. Everyone was completely shut down. And after about a month, we were allowed restaurant-wise, we're a restaurant, to do like to-go drinks, to-go food, and the delivery service really helped us out in that aspect. So after a couple months of that, we were allowed to reopen partially and start building parklets. So the city's been really good in allowing us to build parklets. The permit process has been pretty easy to do. So all these businesses building parklets now, if you walk down Chestnut, you walk up Steiner, up Pierce, up Fillmore, everyone's got a parklet outside, and it's really helping reinvigorate the neighborhood, help us recover. They've blocked off Pierce Street on weekends, so Pierce Street is vibrant now. And all these corridors that have a lot of businesses on them, you know, are really helping the neighborhood get back to it. We've had to pivot to be less of a bar. That's been the biggest problem. We've lost so much revenue because a lot of our revenue comes after 9 and 10 p.m. And we haven't been able to stay open at that or with that capacity. So we've had to pivot more towards food sales and kind of cycling tables through every 90 minutes, every 2 hours. So that's been the biggest challenge. But having the parklet and how easy it was from the city has really helped us out.
I'd also like to make a big point here is that pushing everyone outside has made our sidewalks a lot cleaner, as well as almost feel a lot safer. So that's our insight for the marina, and thank you for letting us speak.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for sharing. And in my opinion, Chestnut Street is really like the poster child for a neighborhood that's pivoted successfully. And I've been there a few times and everybody's wearing their masks. You know, the store owners are cleaning surfaces and there's lots of attention to details like that. So, and because the restaurants are there and they brought in all these people, there's more people on the street. Other businesses are more apt to open as well. So thank you again for sharing. So from there, we're going to go to Sacramento Street Merchants. And Ken Griffin is the new president of the association there as well. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, guys. So I took over for Tracy. I don't have a tremendous story either, but I do. My family has had restaurants in San Francisco for many years, so I've always been part of San Francisco. My parents had a restaurant up on Clay and Jones for about 25 years. My family's from here. I think we go back, my grandparents go back to about 1899. So, but I love San Francisco. I recently purchased a business called Button Down, which is on Sacramento Street. Give you kind of an idea, the Sacramento Street shopping district is kind of between two neighborhoods, between Pacific Heights and Presidio Heights. A lot of modern luxury and classic home furnishings, smaller boutique stores like myself, bigger stores like Anthem, a lot of personal care salons. There's about 6 restaurants on the street and about 7 blocks of total space. You know, I took over right in the middle of, my partner and I purchased Button Down square in the middle of COVID. So it was a tremendous change for us in the sense of how to, you know, we didn't have a website. We didn't have, with the business, Button Down, been here for 40 years, very core clientele for the business that Michael Sabino had built for many years. We didn't want to change that formula because the people that are up here and the people that are in the area love the store, but we did realize that we need to modernize and be able to reach customers. So we were able to implement a website, take the time and implement a website for us. And that was a huge part of kind of bringing back people, even if they weren't able to come in the store and shop, they were going on the website and seeing product, calling us, asking us how things were going. You know, hey, I saw this, I love this brand. You know, almost doing kind of like virtual shopping. Shortly after that, we had kind of our sidewalk sale, which brings out a ton of people. And this is just to give you ideas of how we kind of dealt with having, you know, no people in the store and then a lot of people. We normally do a sidewalk sale that brings about 150 people out. We decided, since we didn't want to have, you know, we couldn't bring a lot of people together, to start doing private shopping events through our website. So we were able to offer blocks that people basically could book to come and look at the sale product and purchase it in their own kind of environment where they felt safe, because a lot of it is really about making the customer feel like they're safe and that they can come in. We steam out every piece of clothing that is tried on. We have our safety plan. I'm very lucky to have my partner as a health and safety director, so he was able to put a whole safety plan together for us. But those things I think are critical in when you have a customer come up to you and go, what are your plans? What do you do if I go and try this on? You have an answer for it. Or what do you do if there's 100 people that show up for a sidewalk sale? You know, we stretched it over 3 days or 4 days instead of 1 day. We had private shopping availabilities for people who were more at risk and people who just didn't want to come to a group event. So it's kind of trying to pivot to be able to do those things. Now, as part of the Merchant Association, I'm partnering with more of the businesses in the area to give them an ability to kind of market themselves. We lost a lot of businesses that were established, but you know, we're looking forward to you know, a good holiday and to bringing new retailers back to the street.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. And you know, to your point, I know on Fillmore Street, once you build that community of merchants, what's nice that I see on Fillmore Street is now merchants are collaborating with one another. And I know Trisha and Ron, you guys coined the term co-opetition. And during this crisis moment, merchants, community partners, public partners, we are so open to collaborating now. And I feel now is the time to strike this opportunity, because this is how we're going to solve at least some of these issues. So now I would like to go to our friend Regan Capone, president of the Union Street Merchants Association. Thank you, Regan.
Yeah, hi, Boz.
Hi.
Well, I'll try to keep it short and sweet. I'm the president of the new president of the Union Street Association, and I took it over from Eleanor Carpenter, who dates way back, did a tremendous job here on Union Street. And the Union Street corridor is all Union Street and then down Fillmore Street to, I believe, Lombard. And I took it over just prior to COVID. And we're going to revamp the Union Street Festival And I gathered a group of magnificent people to come in here, and we were going to have just a great fair, and COVID hit. And as you well know, we're now trying to build our way out of COVID. So a little history dating back. I mean, Union Street, Cow Hollow used to be a pasture, and I actually went to Marina Galileo. So I date back on the street. I used to go to Marina. I used to come down here when I was 12 years old, and I actually watched the street evolve into a commercial district because prior to that, it was more of a family neighborhood than a commercial corridor. So I have a little history dating way back as well. But fast forwarding it, we got these parklets out, and we're trying to work our way out of this COVID situation. And I think the city needs to be more respectful in regards to small business moving forward. I don't think the city itself was very friendly to small businesses prior to pre-COVID. And now more than ever, we need city support to help us moving forward. And I think the parklets have helped tremendously. If you ask me, they revitalized a lot of the neighborhoods in San Francisco by moving things outside. And hopefully that may tend to stay, to have both a little bit of outside, inside with the city's help. More like in Europe and Italy and Greece and things like that. They move. You go, not everybody sits inside. They go outside, they become part of the community, and it just puts a whole different vibe on the whole district. In ending, I just want to say that Union Street, my goal right now is to end the conditional use permits for restaurants on Union Street. I think that's a good revitalization of the street. So when you go to planning, hey, where's a friendly neighborhood? They don't see you, and we attract more restaurants. We're in essence will attract more retail, which in essence will turn us into Chestnut Street. Because I think you guys, like you say, have been Chestnut Street is a great street, and it's because they don't have conditional use and a lot of restrictions. And good luck down there, and good luck to the new president. Thank you.
Thank you, Regan. Appreciate it. Yeah, Union Street is looking so good. Hopefully that will be a silver lining with this COVID. Our streets are going to be more pedestrian, more user-friendly, and more life on the street as well. And by the way, I'm impressed with how many natives we have on this webinar.
Yeah, I'm a native of San Francisco.
This is crazy. I've never, incredible. So now finally we're going to hear from Tim Heyman, president of the Upper Divisadero Merchants Association from Scopo Divino on California and Diviz.
Hi guys. Well, as you can tell, we're in wine bar. So sorry I don't have background here. I'm too inundated by wine. But we are Upper Diviz, which is defined by mostly Divisadero between Sacramento Street and Geary Street, with the offshoots of all the streets as you go down there. There's about 70 businesses here. Our demographic is women. This is one of the few areas of the city that has more women than men. And for that, you see a lot of nail and hair salons that have catered, obviously, to that kind of foot traffic. Our industry was schools and hospitals. We're surrounded by, I was very surprised, within about a 4-block radius, really about 20 schools. And if you expand out maybe just a couple of blocks, there are 4 full-fledged hospitals, 2 very close, and our actual association. Going into kind of what was happening here pre-pandemic, there were already a handful of closures that we had seen. Restaurants, as you probably know, were having an extinction level event, and this is before COVID came. So that's been one of the challenges, I think, for a lot of this industry, is how hard this has hit an industry that was already struggling to survive. Other just little aspects of things that we've had to deal with in this particular neighborhood. We've had homeless that gets pushed around the city because we're on two major streets here, both California and Divisadero. These are on bus lines, so people are traveling and moving. They're getting pushed around, so that's a problem, as is crime. But we've been working closely with the police and obviously supporting them as much as we can. When the pandemic hit, so far, we've had 10 businesses that are gone permanently, which is really sad to see. And there's some temporary closures, and some of those are big places that are gone. But in this time, we've also had a couple of openings, and one that's on the way, including a new nail salon, Routier, a nice restaurant here that took almost 2 years to open. So to the other gentleman's point, the city has been very difficult on businesses to open, and now that they finally got through the permit process, I think that they've streamlined that, and that should be faster going forward. We're also expecting a new cannabis clinic that's coming to the neighborhood and is looking forward to supporting, and I know that there's a smoke shop that's probably going to benefit from that. So we're looking forward to some of the symbiosis between the businesses that are coming. Since COVID has started, we've seen 3 new parklets show up. One, probably the largest I'll refer to, is not just a parklet, but a parklet and a parking lot. Everybody has been doing a good job with the health standards around here, so much so that we've even had Karen and Kevin out there making sure. We've actually been complimented by the city for what we're doing here at Scopo Divino in following all the health standards, basically to the same level of what some of the hospitals are doing. And part of that is because we're surrounded by health workers, and health workers are our customers. So we kind of know who we're catering to, and we have to be a little bit more wary maybe than in some areas, other areas of the city. Businesses that have quickly and effectively pivoted, the word of, I mean, that's the new Webster word of the year, I'm sure, have not only been successful in remaining open, but have probably going to come out of the pandemic stronger than they were before. Scopo Divino, the wine bar that I own and manage here, we have tripled our outdoor seating. We have a bus stop, so we can't take a parklet, but we've gone all the way down to the corner. We work very well with Kumaika, the cafe next door. So in the mornings, he has that outside area, and then in the afternoons and the evenings, we have it. We've added, plants. We've added live music outside. We're pretty much the only music venue in this district, or this area of the district, I should say. We've done Zoom wine tasting events, wine to go, etc. Tea Hut across the street. Boba tea, who knew? I don't know if you all saw the map, was the #1 delivered thing in California during the SIP. He quite literally doubled his regular business during the pandemic. He's opened a second location. He happens to drive a really nice car. We should all be opening boba places. Anyway, so he's a good success story. While we've seen one of the yoga places close, the other one has been doing Zoom yoga, and while they're negotiating their rent, they're trying to make a go of this. There are about 8 food businesses near the hospitals that have increased their cab and go to handle the hospitals and have been doing some direct hospital work. The SLF Athletic Club and Starbucks, they have this gigantic outdoor space with TVs. Imagine 100 people out there on a Tuesday night watching The Bachelorette. It's crazy, but they're making the go of it and learning, kind of what their market is. Again, The Bachelorette, the women in the neighborhood, that's perfect for them. Krista Market, a little corner market. They've done a wonderful pivot for the pandemic. They're offering PPE and other health supplies and kind of things that people need to have a sign on the wall that says, you're one-stop shop for the pandemic. So they're really trying to help people out. Most of those that have made it this far are probably going to survive, but everybody's concerned about the winter months ahead. So, the challenges ahead are scary, and not just from a health standpoint, it's really from are people going to be okay with 25 or 50% business? We've recently gone to 50%, but are people eating inside yet? Not so much. So this is going to be a challenge, I think, for everybody to get through. But in the meantime, we have bonded together at least and done as much cross-marketing as we can. And I think Upper Divis is sort of on the up and up. And as we always say, the rising tide floats all boats. So let's hope that things continue to improve, especially with the support from the city.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. I love all these personal insights into the neighborhoods. And I think I was connected before, now I'm even more connected. And I hope the attendees feel more connected to our neighborhoods as well. So before we start the Q&A, I just want to say, as we can see from our panelists, times are tough, challenging. Merchants are being compelled to rethink their business plans and efficiencies, from online shops to social media, new ways of maintaining and growing their communities. However, we're fortunate to be in San Francisco, where our business environment is by nature very collaborative, and the startup mode is part of our DNA. This is what we do here. And actually, the symbol of San Francisco is the Phoenix. So it's a good metaphor for where we're at right now. We're going to start the Q&A section now. Kenny, are you ready? Ready for all the
ready.
questions? Okay.
I'm super ready.
So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask the first question. As businesses evolve and pivot during this period, how do you see Cruise fitting into this new COVID world that we're in?
That's a great question to start with. I want to start by thanking everyone for sharing their stories. And I think this is a great pivot to sort of talk about exactly what you're asking, right? How does Cruise fit into this area where we can help support and help businesses recover? So number one, I think you all hit on the point perfectly that COVID has really forced us all to sort of shift our mindset and pivot to figure out how we can adjust to this new normal. I think one of the things that's interesting about the merchant community, and you all know this, better than I, is that the shopping experience over the last few years, even prior to COVID, has been shifting. A lot more people are ordering stuff online, and that sort of business model did have an impact on a lot of our local merchants. So I think the obvious way which we sort of have begun to see through the partnership with the food banks is through another delivery service, right? I think that is one way that Cruise could help support these businesses as you all transition to, whether it's a curbside pickup or just full-on delivery service. We think that that's one avenue. I think the other thing that's important to think through is how do we connect the different communities across San Francisco? I briefly touched on transportation equity earlier today. And the fact of the matter is that there are some communities in San Francisco that just don't have adequate transportation. I think that sort of has been exacerbated by the impacts of COVID-19. When you think about the reduction in public transit lines, now there's even less access. So one of the cool things about Cruise is that we own and operate our entire fleet, or that is the goal as we build the service, which gives us the capability of strategically placing vehicles in different communities that don't have that adequate access to transportation. And whether folks use the Cruise vehicle to maybe get to the nearest bike station, or they use it to get to their nearest public transportation line, we see that as a win for the business community because it unlocks an entirely new consumer base that previously may not have patronized these different businesses. So those are a couple of the ways that come to mind. And the other thing is, we're all in this together with this pandemic. I love what a lot of you have shared about just working together amongst each other, but also with your neighboring businesses to figure out how we can work together to get through this. And, we don't know when things are going to go back to quote unquote normal. I think what we do know is that it probably will not be the normal that we were accustomed to pre-COVID. So, to the extent that we can be a help to any of your businesses, definitely want to have those conversations. I did share my email at the end of the presentation there, and would encourage you all to please use me as a resource because you all have unique needs. So again, whether it's transportation, whether it's figuring out ways to drive more foot traffic to the local businesses, we're happy to help and support and look forward to collaborating with you on that.
Thank you. I've got another question from Sphere. He's asking, do you know approximately the date Cars for Blind could be available, and what could be approximate price? How much would it?
So a couple of things. Number one, I don't want to prognosticate on any dates. I will say that it's something that we are working to bring about sooner than later. And as far as pricing, to be clear, we're not actually selling the Cruise vehicles. Like I mentioned, our plan is to own and operate the fleet and to build a rideshare service for the city of San Francisco. Again, with the pandemic, we've been exploring more the delivery option. And I think that's, when Vas and I were having the conversation of how do we engage with merchants, that was sort of one of the first things that came to mind, right? Like with a lot of businesses shifting their business models, exploring a delivery service and understanding the needs that merchants may have and being able to provide, an affordable alternative. So we're focused on that. But yeah, so I don't really want to prognosticate on the date. But I will say that as soon as we know, you will know.
Thank you. And I know, speaking as a merchant, when I had my furniture store, many times if I had visitors staying in a hotel downtown, or if I had residents in Marin or someplace, they wanted a piece of furniture, a gift, I would put in like in an Uber or a Lyft and then just send it away. And then the driver would deliver it. But what's nice, the possibility with Cruise is it would be in a safe place and the cars are much bigger. So you can put bigger pieces of items in there and there would be contactless delivery. So I'm excited by that. Kenny, one more question from Catherine Agnotti. She said, you mentioned providing freedom to people with disabilities. The Cruise Origin was designed for AV service, but is now wheelchair accessible. Per your mission statement, how do you plan to connect people using wheelchairs that are not collapsible to places they need to go if your vehicles aren't wheelchair accessible? What are your plans for providing equitable service? Can you discuss this further?
Thank you so much for that question, Catherine. It's a great question. And you're absolutely right. I think, again, it's important to think about or keep in mind the fact that we're pre-commercial. We're building the product as we go. So what exists today isn't necessarily going to be the final product once we do commercialize and roll it out for public use. What I will also add to that is, same way we're having these conversations, trying to understand what the needs of the community are, I am simultaneously having the same conversation with different groups on the subject of accessibility to try to understand, what are your specific challenges? What would be helpful for you? As you think about transportation, what's helpful to you on a day-to-day, especially when you think about, it is an autonomous vehicle. So just as an example, I've worked with had a few conversations with quite a few advocacy groups that serve the visually impaired community. So getting an understanding from their perspective of what are your day-to-day struggles? When, for example, hailing an autonomous vehicle, what would help you? Is something like, if there are any buttons in the vehicle, is having a braille option something that's super helpful? I'm actually working on a pretty cool project with one of the organizations in San Francisco to help provide maps for the blind community that they can use to better understand neighborhoods or be able to better find direction in different neighborhoods. So, in short, we're having these conversations. That's the reason why we're here. And I always encourage everyone that I meet with, if you have any recommendations on groups that we should be engaging with, please send them my way. If you, a loved one or anyone you know is experiencing any sort of challenges with transportation, definitely let us know. Because again, our goal is to build this equitable service that serves everyone. So we want to think about how do we provide this access to all folks? How do we make sure that transportation is accessible outside of the traditional, commercial and sort of downtown districts? San Francisco is a city that's comprised of many, many different communities, as we've touched on here today, just even within District 2. So it's something that we're working on, and we're having these conversations. I don't have all of the answers today, but that's why we're here, to have those discussions. So appreciate the question. And again, if anyone wants to discuss any of this further, please reach out to me via email, and I'm happy to set up additional conversations with everyone individually.
We have so many questions coming in. So we're like 5 minutes and I know you guys have businesses to run, but we are gonna post Kenny's contact info in the Q&A section of this program. And if you have any further questions, please contact Kenny directly. And we're planning to have these community forums throughout the city. And you're definitely on the mailing list. And as we get to know this technology and benefits that it offers, I'm sure we'll have more questions, and we look forward to discussing this further. But in closing, I would like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Again, this is a time of renewal and growth. Through these dialogues that we have, we can develop more meaningful collaborations and promote innovation and help us get through this crisis. A big thank you to our District 2 Merchant Association, small businesses, leaders, and to Cruise for helping keep our neighborhoods vital. We encourage everyone to get to know your community, your merchants, get involved. As we're beginning to see, individual actions make a huge difference. And please shop local and shop small. And finally, we'll be sharing a survey post this program. And if you could share your thoughts in the survey, we'd really appreciate it. Again, thank you to you all for making this an amazing community forum. Thank you, guys and girls.
Thank you, Vaz.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.